President Moon Jae-in has wrapped up his three-nation tour to ASEAN member nations, namely Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos. With his drive for the so-called New Southern Policy, he has now become the first sitting South Korean president to visit all 10 ASEAN nations. And during his stay in the last three countries, he has made various agreements that would further enhance South Korea-ASEAN ties. Today, we go in depth on the significance of the president's trip and the remaining challenges of his New Southern Policy with Dr. Jaehyon of the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So President Moon Jae-in has become the first sitting Korean president who has visited all 10 ASEAN member nations. Could you start us off with the significance this has on Korea-ASEAN relations?
Yeah, as you just mentioned, he made a trip to Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos last week, and he completed his tour of ASEAN 10 countries last week. And it simply shows the President Moon Jae-in's commitment and sincerity in implementing New Southern Policy towards Southeast Asian countries. The New Southern Policy was first introduced in 2017, at the end of 2017, and at the initial stage, President Moon made a promise that he would visit all 10 Southeast Asian countries while he is in office. And with this trip, he completed his promise, and it is earlier than expected. And on top of that, if you look at past history of Korea-ASEAN relations, and especially Korea's approach towards Southeast Asia, there always has been kind of ups and downs. And at some point, Korea made emphasis on Southeast Asia, but soon it forgot Southeast Asia's importance. And with this trip, there was kind of a doubt from Southeast Asian countries from the beginning on the continuity of New Southern Policy. So with this trip, he kind of gave assurance that South Korea will continue its policy towards Southeast Asia and building partnership with Southeast Asian countries.
Now, amid growing external uncertainties, particularly amid the growing Seoul-Tokyo trade tensions, on top of the U.S.-China trade battle that looks far from over, now ASEAN nations are gaining more strategic importance. How is the current Korea-ASEAN trade, and how do you forecast their trade relations in the future?
Okay, let me first check some numbers. The Korea-ASEAN bilateral trade is substantial. At the moment, it's 160 billion US dollars. And the Southeast Asian 10 countries combined is the second largest trading partner of South Korea, and it accounts for the 14% of South Korea's total trade with the international community. It's only the second to China, which is about 23–24% of our total trade. And what is significant is that South Korea has trade surplus in Southeast Asian market. It's about 40 US billion dollars. And South Korea's whole trade surplus is like 70 billion dollars. So the more than half of the South Korea's trade surplus comes from the Southeast Asian market. And at the moment, ASEAN countries are building economic community, which means a single production base and single market. If Southeast Asian economy is integrated, then its GDP is like 2.9 trillion US dollars, and the total population will be 650 million. It's a huge market for South Korea. And these numbers are too big, and you just have to look. Why China, US, Australia, and Japan, all these big countries are investing their political capital into Southeast Asia? Because they want to win the hearts and minds of Southeast Asian countries. We can say that Southeast Asia is very important.
That is a huge number,
yeah.
And without a doubt, Southeast Asian nations are gaining more and more strategic importance. Now, President Moon, following summit talks with his Thai counterpart in Thailand, said the two nations have agreed to expand cooperation in fourth industrial technologies. And President Moon has also attended a launching ceremony of brand K, which is a collaborated brand of some 40 Korean small to mid-sized firms that sell various products. Expected economic effects from these?
Okay, the first one first. When President Moon Jae-in visited, he made a commitment that made a promise that Thailand 4.0 economic plan and Korea's new southern policy has a lot of similarities and we can cooperate. Basically, Thailand 4.0 is a substantial and comprehensive economic growth plan for Thailand, and it is to get Thailand ready for the fourth industrial revolution, as well as to overcome the middle-income trap that Thailand is facing at the moment. And they put a lot of emphasis on smart technology in Thailand 4.0. And of course, South Korea is quite well known as one of the leading countries in ICT technology. So there are a lot of things Thailand and South Korea can do together for their own economic growth. And you just mentioned the brand K. As with the Korean wave so popular in Southeast Asia, the Korean products are quite popular in Southeast Asian market as well. But for big companies like Samsung, LG, they have no problem in Southeast Asia. But small and medium industries, small and medium enterprises, they have a little bit of difficulties to penetrate into the Southeast Asian market. So with the brand K, it opens a new market for the small and medium industries.
Now, President Moon, during his stay in Thailand, also signed a military intel sharing pact with the nation, and it came on the heels of the termination of Seoul-Tokyo GSOMIA. How do you see that?
Well, the two leaders from Korea and Thailand signed GSOMIA and some MOUs for the defense and military cooperation between Korea and Thailand. And we can expect a deeper military and defense cooperation between Korea and Thailand. And Thailand is a U.S. ally as well. And Thailand sent troops to the Korean War, more than 10,000 troops. The signing of GSOMIA with Thailand coincided with terminating GSOMIA with Japan. So some people say that we are replacing Japan with Thailand, but that doesn't really make sense. GSOMIA is basically about protection of military information. So when we start military cooperation, it is needed to protect our own military information. So South Korea already has 35 GSOMIA agreements with the other countries. So it is just natural to start military cooperation and deepen defense cooperation with other countries.
Now to Myanmar. The nation is often referred to as the last untapped territory in Southeast Asia. How do you assess its economic growth potential and future Korea-Myanmar economic relations?
Along with Laos, that President Moon Jae-in visited, Myanmar is kind of a last opportunity remaining in Southeast Asia. As you know, Myanmar experienced a military dictatorship for a few decades. And in 2011, it started the political liberalization. And 2014, it has a new civilian government in Myanmar. And now they are quite serious to develop its economy. That's what Myanmar people wants from the government at the moment. And the Myanmar government announced what we call a sustainable development plan recently. And it is quite comprehensive economic development plan, including areas like education, public health, and governance reform. And with that, South Korea can make some contribution for the realization of sustainable development plan of Myanmar. And we have to extend our ODA for infrastructure, education, public health. So basically, the Myanmar's economic growth today will be South Korea's economic opportunity tomorrow, and it can be a market for South Korea tomorrow.
Now, President Moon's last stop was Laos. Korea has made various efforts to expand cooperation between countries through which the Mekong River flows. And the longest part of the Mekong River flows through Laos. How do you gauge the economic potential of enhanced Korea-Laos cooperation?
Okay, Laos is kind of a landlocked country, and we don't have a substantial economic relations with Laos at the moment, but it has great potential. As you know, the largest part of the Mekong River runs through the Laos border. Within Laos, it passes through the Laos territory. And if you look at the map of the Mekong region, the Laos is at the center of the whole Mekong region. It is surrounded by Myanmar, Cambodia, and Vietnam, and on top of Laos, there's China. So if you wanted to complete connectivity in the Mekong region, you have to build the infrastructure, you have to enhance connectivity in Laos. In that sense, the Laos is quite important as long as Mekong cooperation is concerned. And that is why the President Moon Jae-in made announced the Korea-Mekong vision in Laos.
The peace process on the Korean Peninsula is also one of President Moon's signature policies. What significance do ASEAN nations have in President Moon's push for his peace process?
Southeast Asian countries are quite interesting because all 10 ASEAN countries have a diplomatic relation with South Korea at the same time with North Korea. They have a little bit of economic relation with North Korea and people-to-people exchange. And from North Korea perspective, Southeast Asian countries are quite neutral countries. At least Southeast Asian countries are not threatening parties to North Korea. So the Southeast Asian countries are very strategically located in between North Korea and South Korea. They can be mediator between North and South. Also, they can convene these two parties, as you have seen in Singapore summit and Hanoi summit between United States and North Korea. And in his trip to the three countries, President Moon Jae-in had talks with three leaders, and they all promised their support for President Moon's peace process in the Korean Peninsula, and they promised they will do their part in realizing peace in the Korean Peninsula.
So although the ASEAN nations are relatively neutral, not two-sided to South or the North, but President Moon Jae-in did succeed in drumming up support for his peace process on the Korean Peninsula. Now, unfavorable external conditions linger over Korea's security as well as the economy. What are some remaining challenges of President Moon's new Southern policy?
As you mentioned, the South Korea is at the moment is faced a lot of problems like U.S.-China tension, trade war, and we are facing North Korea. Of course, for security, South Korea's security, #1 priority goes to Korean Peninsula, and the #1 diplomatic efforts goes to managing our relation with China and the United States. So it means that if something happens in Korean Peninsula, the policy resource that has to be allocated to the New Southern policy could be reallocated to other fronts. So what we need is more political will to continue New Southern policy. And the important factor that guarantees this political will to the New Southern policy is people's support, Korean people's general support. And for that, South Korean people's awareness of the importance of Southeast Asian countries should be raised further.
All right, that is all the time we have for you. Thank you for your thorough analysis tonight.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up our show. Thank you, as always, for being with us.